Welcome to another round of Boardroom or Miro Board. Today we talk retrospectives with Agile coach Maria. Let's go. First question. You've spent 2 hours in a team retro, but the only input you've heard is Dave's. Boardroom or Miro Board?
Boardroom. In Miro, Dave can't hog the space because everyone can add thoughts anonymously, online, at the same time.
Correct. Next. You need the team to act on feedback fast, so you turn all those retro notes into Jira tasks instantly.
Miro all the way. And I can assign those tasks to teammates.
You're nailing this. Now, you see hundreds of sticky notes from the retro. A real mess. But you organize them into 5 themes in just seconds.
Miro, I basically get back an entire hour when I use its AI tools for clustering.
And she's done it.
Join over 60 million people running actually enjoyable and actionable retros in Miro. Get your first 3 boards free at Miro.com. That's Miro.com.
Whether you're looking to buy or sell with a RE/MAX agent, they'll use their years of experience to help you plan for now and later. From when this...
Welcome to your new home, baby girl.
...turns into this.
Yeah, we're gonna need a bigger home.
And this...
Oh, I hate this place.
...turns into this.
I'm really gonna miss this place.
From tiny steps to your next big move. When you're ready to make a change, visit RE/MAX.com or download the RE/MAX app to find the right agent. The right agent can lead the way. Each office independently owned and operated.
Welcome to Illinois in Focus. I'm Greg Bishop. Coming up, we'll review the week's top stories about the ongoing discussion around the planned closure of Stateville and Logan correctional facilities, new documents about Chinese battery manufacturer Goshen, and the status of the state's grocery tax. I'll then join the Center Square's Dan McCaleb to further discuss those stories and more. That's ahead with Illinois in Focus. I'm Greg Bishop.
Do you know what elected officials in Illinois are doing with your tax dollars? Do you want to make sure that your voice is heard? If so, then you need Blue Room Stream, a live and archived video streaming service that provides access to government meetings and events. With Blue Room Stream, you can watch how your elected officials make decisions, hold them accountable for their actions, and be a more informed citizen. Blue Room Stream is the perfect way to get involved in the democratic process and to make a difference in your community. Subscribe today at blueroomstream.com.
Welcome back to Illinois in Focus. I'm Greg Bishop. Here's some of the top stories from the past week. A plan to close down and rebuild the Stateville Correctional Center in Crest Hill is forging ahead. Kevin Bessler has that story.
Governor J.B. Pritzker made the announcement last March that both Stateville and the Logan Correctional Center in Lincoln would close to address critical infrastructure needs at both facilities. During a Commission on Government Forecasting and Accountability meeting Tuesday evening, State Senator Don DeWitt wondered if Pritzker may change his mind and not build a new prison at Stateville.
What assurance can you give the legislature that there is even an intention to rebuild Stateville? Sorry. And I'm only asking the question because the general population in all of the DOC facilities is down.
The estimated cost to replace both prisons is $900 million. Stateville is slated to close in September. I'm Kevin Bessler.
A similar hearing was held Thursday in Lincoln to evaluate the planned closure of the Logan Correctional Facility. The commission votes on a recommendation Friday. Illinois Congressman Darren LaHood revealed in a letter to the U.S. Department of Homeland Security that the Chinese battery manufacturer Goshen has ties with companies directly linked to slave labor and the ongoing genocide of the Uyghurs. Katrina Peterson reports.
In the letter, LaHood said companies like Goshen are committing horrific crimes and are getting American taxpayer money. Echoing LaHood's comments is Amanda Piker, one of the Manteno citizens suing Goshen.
Here in America, we should not be giving taxpayer money to people who are using slave labor in their own country.
Meanwhile, Governor J.B. Pritzker touted Goshen's arrival to Manteno while giving remarks at the Chicagoland Chamber of Commerce annual meeting.
We've put a special focus on industries of the future, pursuing a path to long-term sustainable growth.
Piker said the governor is lying about Goshen bringing jobs to Illinois. Piker said Goshen still receives their tax breaks, and in return, all they have to do is provide 150 jobs by 2028. I'm Katrina Peterson.
Illinois' state grocery tax will go away January 1st, 2026, but local governments will be able to restore it locally without a referendum under a proposal ready to be signed by Governor J.B. Pritzker. In signing the $53.1 billion budget last week, Pritzker heralded the end of the grocery tax.
We eliminated eliminated the state sales tax on groceries, which helps every Illinoisan deal with the effects of higher prices in the checkout line and keeps food on the table.
But that provision wasn't signed with the budget. It remains on Pritzker's desk and won't actually zero out the 1-cent grocery tax for another 16 months. That's also when local governments can impose their own tax without a local voter referendum. State Senator Andrew Chesney decried the plan on the Senate floor.
Everybody in this room knows you are not cutting a darn thing. You are not providing any relief to local municipalities. You are using this for campaign reasons and campaign reasons only.
When the governor initially proposed eliminating the grocery tax in February, there wasn't any backfill to the lost revenue for local governments, which is estimated at $320 million. Those are the top stories from the past week from Illinois. Find more online at thecentersquare.com. Coming up for Illinois in Focus, I'll join the Center Square's Dan McCaleb to further discuss the news. This is Illinois in Focus, a production of America's Talking Network. I'm Greg Bishop.
Knowledge is power, and you deserve to know what happens in your state government. That's why the nonprofit Franklin News Foundation is bringing you straight news journalism through the Center Square, reporting on state authorities and publishing stories that show where your money goes and who spends it. By supporting the Center Square, you can track politicians' use of taxpayer money and demand transparency from elected officials. This is how we can equip everyday Americans to hold their government accountable. Become a supporter of Franklin today at franklinnews.org/donate.
Tired of being in the dark about what happens day to day under the dome in Springfield? Do you want to be more informed in the decision-making process? If so, you need Blue Room Stream, a live and archived video streaming service that provides access to government meetings and events. With Blue Room Stream, you can watch elected officials in action, holding them accountable, and having your say on issues that matter most to you. Blue Room Stream is the perfect way to stay informed about Illinois state government and to be a more engaged citizen. Become a subscriber today at blueroomstream.com.
Welcome back to Illinois in Focus, powered by the Center Square. I'm Dan McCaleb, Chief Content Officer at Franklin News Foundation, publisher of the Center Square Newswire service. Plans by the state to tear down and reconstruct Stateville Correctional Center in Will County and the Logan Correctional Center in Lincoln have community members and key stakeholders concerned. The Commission on Government Forecasting and Accountability held a hearing Tuesday night in Joliet on the Stateville plan, and concerns about jobs and whether the state actually will ever rebuild the prison locally were aired. Joining me to discuss this is Greg Bishop, Illinois Associate Editor. Greg, let's start with the why. Why is the Pritzker administration proposing closing these two state prisons?
Yeah, Dan, it's no surprise that the state has foregone a lot of maintenance. Deferred maintenance at both facilities is millions upon millions of dollars just for some of the facilities to be fixed up. It could cost, tens of millions of dollars, and the price tag is stacking up. Plus, the state faces several cases in court. The Department of Corrections talked about the not just infrastructure for toilets and sanitation, but also the lack of infrastructure for fire suppression. Plus, when you work in all of the technological upgrades that are needed for everything from IT systems to cameras, all those costs continue to stack up. And do you want to spend that type of money on an outdated old facility? I think Stateville, for instance, was built in the late 20s, if I'm not mistaken. So clearly there's a need for this, the administration says, but how this plays out and the overall cost to taxpayers already estimated at $900 million for both facilities to be torn down and replaced. But even that is an estimate, and we could possibly see that number either lower or balloon upwards. So all of these things are being considered right now by State Commission on Government Forecasting and Accountability, and we'll see exactly where they go towards whether they're going to move forward or recommend that they hold off. We'll be watching closely at thecentersquare.com.
Greg, one of the concerns aired at Tuesday night's hearing in Joliet was about jobs. These prisons employ more than 1,000 people each. They provide jobs to locals. One of the questions that was raised there is with, Illinois' prison population has been declining over the years with all the reforms the legislature has made to various laws, with many prosecutors not moving forward with prosecution of certain crimes, etc. that there won't be a need to rebuild one or both of these prisons. Is that a legitimate concern, or is that just speculation at this point?
Well, a lot of speculation about all of this, not just from the cost and what the buildings are going to look like and where the inmates that are currently housed in these facilities would go, but also whether or not those facilities will be rebuilt. And a question that State Senator Don DeWitt directly asked the Illinois Department of Corrections was just that. What kind of assurance can they give the Illinois legislature that they're actually going to rebuild? And the moment he finished his question, a room full of AFSCME union members erupted into applause because they feel that there has not been that certainty provided to where they feel confident supporting this type of proposal to demolish these buildings and then rebuild. And the jobs as well is a major sticking point here. The governor has said nobody's going to lose their job, but the Department of Corrections says in the process of demolishing the Stateville and Logan correctional facilities, in Stateville, they may have a temporary facility there that the employees could possibly still work at. Or they could go to another facility close by. Same thing for Logan in Lincoln. That facility, they're not going to be having a temporary space. So the Department of Corrections says jobs will be offered at other facilities. They say is within driving distance, but the employees are pushing back, saying that they would have to drive in some instances 70 miles just to get to a new location where they may be able to perform their duties. But clearly, this is something that is going to be debated further with the Department of Corrections, and we'll be watching that. And what the cost is going to be the taxpayers. As I said, I mean, the estimate's $900 million, but it could increase substantially, especially depending on any kind of inflationary pressures and other things.
Right, and this is a step that the governor's administration could take. It does not have to get legislative approval. Am I right on that?
Gets into a little bit of the weeds, Dan, but ultimately what you have is the governor announcing this plan, which includes closing facilities. And state law does say that if there are facilities to be closed, there need to be public hearings. And those public hearings are through the Commission on Government Forecasting and Accountability. Now, what the commission does is they field all of the input from the stakeholders, from the state, and then they vote, and we're expecting that vote on Friday, as we're recording this a bit earlier than typical. But the Commission on Government Forecasting and Accountability does take a vote, but the vote is merely a recommendation. It's not something that will possibly stop this plan from moving forward or greenlight the plan moving forward. It's merely a recommendation from how I understand it. So it seems the governor's pretty set on making this happen. We've got these formalities of having public hearings and input from all stakeholders involved in this. But clearly a plan that is not really super clear on the timeline, not super clear on the costs, not super clear on what's going to happen to the employees or even the prison residents. So this is an issue that's spanning across, taxpayer costs plus the public safety aspects plus economic issues. Because one thing too, Dan, is you got to consider in Logan, you've got the city of Lincoln where the Logan Correctional Facility is housed. It's a rural community. And a lot of prisons across the state are in rural communities, and their economies are really impacted by these types of decisions. And it's not just the prison jobs that could be gone by the wayside. It could be all of the other supporting services that there are. Everything from restaurants to hardware stores to barbers even. So clearly this is going to have a major impact in these two communities across the state.
As Greg mentioned, we are recording this a day early on Wednesday, June 12th. It should be noted that there will be a second hearing. This one held Thursday of this week at Logan of the Commission on Government Forecasting and Accountability. You can read our coverage at thecentersquare.com. Greg, we've talked a lot about the state budget. Governor J.B. Pritzker, with his signature, enacted it. You covered it for thecentersquare.com. Tell us about it.
There are $53.1 billion in spending for state tax dollars, $125 billion when you include federal tax dollars. It's the largest state budget in state history. And this is something that the governor says is full of investments in education, in early childhood development, on the businesses that he's wanting to make sure are thriving in Illinois, electric vehicle businesses, battery manufacturers, and a whole host of others. So there's a lot in this budget. And the governor also having to increase taxes by $750 million to balance the budget. And the governor signing that on Friday. And that does a whole host of things, from increasing taxes on video gaming terminals, on sports betting companies. It caps the retailer discount they get for acting as the sales tax collector. It also caps what businesses can claim in net losses in their taxes, and $750 million to fund the largest state budget in state history. Also expected to help cover some of the $900+ million in non-citizen migrant spending. And one thing the governor is touted, and even when he signed the budget, he said, we got rid of the grocery tax. Dan, that bill, at least as of right now, Wednesday, has not been signed. And that bill also, when it is enacted, won't end the state grocery tax until January 1st of 2026. But at that same time, that's when local governments are able to increase the grocery tax locally on their residents. At the same time, a bunch of other measures that passed the state house don't necessarily seem to be favorable to taxpayers. You've got Republicans pushing back on a few of them that they say removes taxpayer protection by saying that, for instance, one bill allows for the local school boards to increase taxes to build schools without a referendum. Another measure gives local governments the ability to increase the grocery tax, but also to increase the sales tax in their areas without a voter referendum, simply by passing an ordinance or a resolution. So there's so much in this budget and some things that people may not see on the surface level that is going to directly impact taxpayers.
Interesting, Greg. The team at the CenterSquare.com, of course, had widespread coverage of the budget and the tax increases that were enacted, and you can be sure to bet that there will be more stories coming. Greg, you mentioned tax breaks. One of the companies that's getting a tax break from Illinois is Goshen, a Chinese-connected company that makes batteries and other high-tech stuff. U.S. Representative Darren LaHood this week sent a letter to the U.S. Department of Homeland Security raising concerns that the battery manufacturer Goshen has ties with companies directly linked to forced labor, to slave labor. What's going on with this?
There's been an ongoing concern about Chinese companies that have significant supply chains all throughout China, for instance, and the use of the Uyghur Muslim population and what's been characterized as slave labor. Representative LaHood saying information that he's gathered indicates that Goshen, an electric battery manufacturer, is tied with the supply chains with questionable links to the abuse of the Uyghur Muslim population. And he's saying that with the company set to get not just federal tax benefits, but in Illinois, the company's set to get more than $500 million in tax benefits to build in Kankakee County in Manteno. And that's raised a significant concern. So LaHood's trying to put pressure on the Biden administration to recognize this and to possibly put a stop to this company moving to Illinois to set up a battery operation using taxpayer resources to do so.
It'll be interesting to see how this unfolds, Greg. Goshen actually proposed a very similar plant in Michigan about a year before they did so in Illinois. There were similar concerns, not necessarily about slave labor, but about Goshen and its connection to China. Similar concerns raised in Michigan. So far, that's still moving forward. So we'll see if this newfound alleged connection with slave labor will slow it. slow it down here or anywhere else.
In Kankakee County, there is a group of residents suing Goshen themselves. And they say that the documents that Representative LaHood has offered up will be used in their case, and they hope that the courts there recognize it as well.
Again, listeners will be able to follow this ongoing story at thecentersquare.com. Greg, moving on, longtime former chief of staff for longtime former Illinois House Speaker Michael Madigan. He reported to the Federal Bureau of Prisons this week to start his 2.5-year sentence for perjury related to the ongoing investigation into corruption-related charges of Madigan. Bring us up to speed.
Yeah, so Tim Mapes, former House clerk, former chief of staff for Madigan, found guilty last year by a federal jury for lying to investigators and a grand jury about what he knew of Madigan's businesses, what federal prosecutors called Madigan Enterprise. And this is the allegation against Madigan. He still faces trial in October on 23 counts of racketeering and official misconduct. And essentially, federal prosecutors say Madigan used his office to give himself and his associates personal gain. So they got a conviction on the ComEd 4, which was back in last year as well. And you've also got the conviction of Mapes for lying about what he knew of Madigan's dealings. And now Mapes is, after being found guilty, going to a Florida penitentiary to serve 2.5 years of a prison sentence. Now, what's interesting is, you kept saying long time. One thing the judge noted in this case was Illinois' corruption, long-time corruption, has been well documented. And the judge said that now's the time for accountability, something that Illinoisans are demanding. So part of that accountability includes holding individuals like Tim Mapes accountable for lying to federal prosecutors and ultimately ending up in a federal penitentiary.
Yeah, as you mentioned, Madigan's case goes up in October, or goes to a jury, goes to court in October, which about a month before the elections. Of course, every single Illinois House seat is on the table in November. So, of course, eyes of the entire state is going to be on that trial and the outcome of that trial. But that'll be interesting to see if it has any impact on the elections come November. Greg, time for one last story, and it's an interesting one, curious one. Madigan's replacement in the House Speaker role, Emmanuel Chris Welsh, looks like he's going to go to court by his own legislative staff, who have been trying to negotiate terms for forming a union of legislative staff. They say Welsh, despite supporting an amendment in 2022 that guaranteed the right to collectively bargain and the right to join a union and all those kinds of things in the Illinois Constitution, even though Welsh supported that, was an ardent supporter of that, they say he's sort of blocking their passageway to forming their own union. Tell us more about that.
And so the Labor Rights Amendment approved by voters narrowly in the 2022 election essentially said that every employee in the state of Illinois has the right to collectively bargain for wages and benefits and terms of employment. And when that was approved, they gave some hope to those staffers at the Illinois State House who put in long hours. And even as a reporter watching at 3:30 in the morning, staffers are there by the sides of legislators, getting them everything they need, including answers to what's in their bills. So the staffers thought that it was, a hopeful sign that they could possibly form a union and negotiate benefits and terms with the individuals like the House Speaker or the Senate President or the Minority Leader or, some of these other caucuses that there are. But what they quickly found out was when they tried to do some kind of sit-downs with the Speaker's office was not having it. And even the Speaker's office put together a bill that would say, hey, we can let these groups unionize. But the Legislative Staff Association said that is not a workable bill. It has a lot of poison pills in it. And plus, while it passed the House, it has not been brought up in the Senate. So they said that they are done waiting for the Speaker to come around after months upon months, 18 months or so of trying to negotiate and trying to get to the table to be recognized as a union. And now they're taking him to court, and they're alleging that he is violating his terms of office, and that he has not sat down and provided these workers their constitutional right of collective bargaining. And obviously, it's a pretty contentious issue because Welch himself supported this particular amendment to allow for collective bargaining amongst workers. So this is obviously a pretty contentious case. We'll be updating people as we get information on the trajectory of it and the arguments back and forth. All of that we'll report at thecentersquare.com.
Greg, thank you for joining us today. As you just said, listeners can keep up with all things Illinois at thecentersquare.com.
Welcome to another round of Drawing Board or Miro Board. Today we discuss technical diagramming with systems architect Maya. Let's go. First question. You've spent 10 hours slogging over a sequence diagram that should have taken 5. Drawing board or Miro board?
Drawing board. And if I'm being honest, Miro would probably cut that time down by half. You know, with its AI tools and ready-to-go templates.
Next, your diagrams become so bulky, it's more complex than the solar system. But all it takes is a few clicks and...
It's Miro! I've used those technical shape packs way too many times, and stuff is just digestible on its infinite online canvas.
Now, the final question. Everyone's brought in, but you have to make all these tasks all the way over in Jira. But wait, it's done! Is it...
Miro, easy with its two-way Jira sync. Easy to plot dependencies. Everyone always knows what's up.
And she's done it!
Join over 60 million people creating technical diagrams without workflow glitches. Get your first 3 boards for free at Miro.com. That's MIRO.com.
When it comes to buying your first home, everyone has questions.
Can we even afford to buy a house right now? Well, I need to negotiate. How do I even negotiate?
Luckily, a RE/MAX agent has answers.
Hey, Brian, those are really good questions.
They are? Thanks. It's my first time buying.
I work with first-time buyers all the time. I got you.
RE/MAX agents have more experience than other real estate agents. Visit RE/MAX.com or download the RE/MAX app to find the right agent. The right agent can lead the way. Each office independently owned and operated.